I was very confident in my ability to deliver. But I wasn't sure as to my why. Now, you guys had a hard day flying in yesterday and still getting kind of thrown into the fire. Today, I want to make sure that you understand why Campus Advantage cares enough about you to invest this time, this money, and this energy into creating a system that helps you process how you're going to make a bigger difference, how you're going to live a more fulfilled life, how you're going to be a success in a long legacy leaving kind of way instead of a just, hey, how did my quarter numbers work, okay? That's deeply connected to why. There's a huge system that we're going to roll out to you that I think is highly effective in advancing you. But until you know why, who cares? So, when you're walking without your why, this is the most important slide. You're just walking in the dark. You can't see where you're going, and it doesn't really matter. So Yogi Berra actually said, if you're not sure where you're going, you'll probably end up there. That's what darkness you're walking in as you look for that why. So how does why break down? When you're trying to come up with it on your own, it ends up looking like that. I was winding down a freeway, having just done a standing ovation, and back into San Jose, there's a long freeway called the 680, and it's very windy and very fast, and I'm doing, let's call it college speed. Somebody decided they'd leave their Dodge Ram truck parked in the fast lane with no lights on in the middle of the night. That's what it looks like. When you've got all kinds of speed, all kinds of strength, all kinds of skills, but your why is missing. When you're driving in the dark, you run into things that you didn't anticipate, and it causes some substantial damage. It took 20 minutes with the jaws of life to cut me out of that car. It left the truck, the engine, and my lap all fighting for the same spot. It collapsed my femur into itself like a telescope. It broke every bone in my left leg and my left arm, and after it took 20 minutes with the jaws of life to cut me out, they actually had to operate on me standing up to rebuild my leg long enough that I wouldn't be lopsided for the rest of my life. That's the small damage. The real damage was to my brain because the impact of that had done such substantial trauma that it reduced me to the mental capacity of a 2-year-old. My wife might argue how much that last part ever changed, but you'll find that even in the darkest of times, my last name is Black, and so I have sort of a dark sense of humor. So you'll forgive me if I look at this and I think that's kind of funny. The only thing I can read in that picture says Die Hard. I think that's funny. That sums me up. You know, I'm just going to keep going until I can't. But why not use that same strength and that same commitment to advancing and have a solid steering wheel knowing that where you're going is what matters? So originally, I was in such disrepair mentally, the closest approximation that could come was a stroke. So I awoke with a Bronx accent. Do you think I have no filter now? Literally, all filters were removed. So any thought I had leapt from my lips as soon as I thought it. Now, gentlemen, you guys are Campus Advantage, so all of these properties are next to colleges, right? Which generally has a certain age group associated. And you may or may not know what most college guys are thinking about most of the time is probably better filtered. Is that a fair statement? Okay, so imagine operatic tenor full of himself plus zero filter equals somebody who's especially special to take care of. That's why who you are in the midst of whatever your trial is, and it's not if, it's when you go through a trial, right? So there's three kinds of people. There's either people that are in the midst of a huge struggle, a battle, or there's people that are just coming out of one, and thank God, and they feel better about it. And there's people that are about to go into one, right? So at the end of the day, we're all facing challenges. Who you choose to be in the midst of that, your core character, is what's going to be that anchor point that gives you a place to stand no matter which of those three places you're in. If you're going into a storm, if you're in the midst of one, or if you're finally coming out of one, that anchor point of core character, of who you choose to be in that moment, is really what's going to help you either make it through or just get thrown against the rocks and crushed. So the pride and the strength in me with zero filter and the damage done, I've already told you, they had to operate on me standing up to rebuild my leg. So my leg was not what I would call walkable. And yet my pride meant that I wanted to escape the hospital. And so I kept trying to trick people, bribe people, beg people, convince people to get me out of the hospital. So I would try and walk, and I would crumple to the ground in pain. I'd wake up after I passed out and start all over again. So I'm probably the only moron you'll find that actually had to get locked into his medical bed so he didn't escape the hospital. That's what this is it's a veil bed. It's where they zip you into the medical bed from the outside so you can't escape. Again, two ways to learn. The hard way, the easy way. My suggestion is B, but do what you got to do. So, as you're walking through it, she is a great example of character, of intelligence, of integrity, of absolute passion. And I can't describe, I think mojo's a great word. That's my beautiful girlfriend at the time, who's dumb enough to have become my bride. And she stood with me through the midst of all of that. The reason I went into such great length to describe how broken I was, not just physically, but mentally, was because that's all the more indicator of who she chose to be in the midst of all of that. So even when I was off course, I didn't have a true north that really resonated, that anchored me through it, she got to be my anchor point. And that's who you get to be as leaders for your campus, for your team, for your family, arguably for your own life, as long as you know who you're choosing to be. Your core values, as they're rooted in intelligence, integrity, mojo, and a passion for life. Why? Why is pretty simple. I'm the eldest of 8. I have 6 children myself, so you'll forgive me if I feel like there's a great benefit in breaking things down to a 5-year-old level. That's how I like to be talked to, is just simplified. Who, how, and yes. The acronym of why. Who, how, and yes. Who are you choosing to be? Again, that core character. And then once you got that who, once you know who you've chosen to be, well, there's a whole other set of things that happens that requires you to actually be able to actuate it, right? Having core character is one thing. Having those 4 things anchoring you is absolutely a great place to stand. But it's an anchor point, not a vision cast. And so how do you actuate that? Well, I, again, suckered her into marrying me. It was pretty awesome. We graduated, decided that we would pursue the dream down in Los Angeles. We are both classically trained as performers. So I was an opera singer, but I'm also an actor, I was able to perform for a living even after that accident because I got back on my feet because of her and God. And so on the other side of that, we moved to Los Angeles to pursue the dream. I'm doing movies, I'm doing TV, I'm doing commercials, live theater. Life is looking pretty good. And so she thinks, you know what, this is the time we need to buy a new house. And so as all of this is coming together, the visionary in my bride decided, you know what, our next thing that we need to do is buy this new house. And so as we're moving into our new LA-sized mortgage house, the last thing that had to get moved out of the house was a 6-foot by 6-foot sheet of glass tabletop. And the only way to carry it, you know what? This might sum it up faster. As you're walking and you now know who you are, sometimes you have to know what the next step looks like, and it can be surprising.
The day of the accident was definitely the worst day of my life.
We were actually taking a glass table down to our garage to put in storage, and we had 2 young boys helping us move, and Jason was on one end, and the kid dropped the table.
It cracked all the way up to the top of the glass, leaving a jagged edge that came straight down like a guillotine on Jason's neck and cut his head almost off.
I've never seen anything to the extent of this patient's injury. It was a huge gash to his neck, basically extending from right below his ear down to his chest, actively bleeding blood.
Is this audible bleeding?
That's what we got. There's an entity in surgery which we call audible bleeding. That means that the bleeding is so rapid that you hear it. At this point, it wasn't about saving his voice, it was about saving his life.
Jason feels like if he can't sing, life isn't worth living for, because music is such the core of who he is. They didn't think Jason was going to make it.
Mrs. Black.
I was met by the doctor, and he's prepping me, and Tasha, you gotta be strong, and you gotta stay strong for him, and you gotta tell him you love him, and anything else you want to tell him.
Dr. Khalilis saved Jason's life. But for Jason, survival is bittersweet. His right arm's permanently paralyzed, and all he can do is make a rasping whisper. His greatest gift is useless.
Man, I would hate to be that guy. Even more so, I'd hate to be her, wouldn't you? Can you imagine? She saw me through that whole first thing. We're back on our feet. Things have turned around. And now she sees her new husband bleeding to death on the floor. On the best day of her life, hey, we're newly married and we're going to get a new house. Wait, what's happened to my life? And so in those moments, yeah, knowing who you are is absolutely imperative. Having that core character gives you an anchor point. But you have to start asking yourself, wow, what does this actually mean to me? How am I going to be able to do this? And that's why I acknowledge Campus Advantage for reaching out to their leadership and not just giving you fluff of mojo and passion and things that it's hard to hold on to. So what they're doing is they've put together the how, not just the who, of what does this look like in your life? How do I even do this? Well, execution, literally getting things done. Relationship, realizing that we're all in this together and there's an interplay and everyone has a role to play. Management, you know what? Recognizing the facts at hand and putting things back together. And finally, obviously leadership, stretching yourself and others to reach that next best step in your actions. So the how becomes just as important as the who. The core values power and anchor your core competencies. And as we walk forward, we're looking past just the who have you chosen to be. Now, how are we going to do it? And that's part of what we're going to do. And that's why these assessments that have been created for you are so powerful and important, because they help you recognize strengths that you can leverage and weaknesses that you can overcome. That's why what we're about to do is so important to you, and why your leadership team cares enough about you to give you these tools. So, as we're walking forward, these are my how. These are what prompt me having to figure out how to make it happen. I have 6 beautiful children. 2 adopted, 4 blood. I'll let you figure out which ones are which. You got to ask yourself, though, is my who and is my how strong enough that even when things look impossible, I can still make it through this? And not only survive, but thrive. Now, I came in lip syncing to that track of something that I was able to sing. I awoke to be told by the best hospital in the world, after having both jugular veins severed. You can actually still see the scar starts way up here, and it goes all the way down to here. And it goes all the way back down to my spine internally. It severed nerves at C5 and 6 severed both jugular veins. Should have bled out in what, 45 seconds? 45 minutes later, I still have audible bleeding. I'm bleeding so badly it can be heard as it's being pumped out of your body. And they still won't operate on me because they're that sure I'm going to die. They want to wait until my wife comes to say goodbye before they'll touch me. I woke to be told by the best hospital in the world, we have never seen anybody suffer anything to the extent of what you have, much less survive. Whew, you should be grateful to be alive. But by the way, you're never going to whisper again. Have a nice day. Now, I don't know if you were paying attention in the beginning, but I'm trained in 2 equally useless degrees: vocal performance and theater. Both of them require a voice. So essentially, they just said, you should be grateful to be alive, but all I'm hearing is you may as well be dead. There's no way to take care of your family. Your how becomes all the more important in situations like that. Now, thankfully, while they said I won't be able to sing again, at least I've had my voice restored, and I'm able to share these lessons and hopefully give you practical steps that you can walk forward with. And again, that you're able to learn through my pain instead of yours. They're my how. They're my impetus of creating the next how, of how can I be of greater service knowing who I want to be? How can I help some other people knowing what I've learned, knowing what I know now, so that you can learn that with so much less pain? They are why I have my how. If you notice in the middle, the bright, bright eyes on this boy here, his name is Cole Phoenix Black. That's actually the name of my first album, was Phoenix. My wife's middle name is Nicole, and so both of my daughters, both my adopted and my blood daughter, have Nicole as their middle name because it's just an anchor point to me of remembering how much I love their mother. And then when he came, I figured Nicole would be a weird name for him. So we went with Cole. So he's Cole Phoenix, because I try and give all of my boys what I call rock star names for middle names that they can live into. Sadly, I didn't know how much he would have to live into that name, Phoenix. He is such a ball of fire. If he were in this room, he would have found a way not just to climb those gears in the back. He would be up there waving down, and you wouldn't have known he was up there for the last 15 minutes. He'd be waving right now like, look what I did. He's a climber. He's an overcomer. He's a challenge every single rule kind of kid. And I respect and am deeply annoyed by that. Because he looks just like me, and that sucks. So, he's got that fire inside him. He's got that overcoming spirit. He knows what rising from the ashes means. And so he's, like I said, he's always going to be on top. He's always climbed to the top. And so with that kind of power, with that kind of extensive energy, I thought this kid needs more land. So we left Los Angeles and we moved to Texas. So we're on 1.6 acres. And I thought this is exactly what he needs. It's a place to run and just go be a kid. And so as he's running around on, we live on Willie Nelson's property, so it just looks out on Texas. And it's a 30-mile view, and it's gorgeous. And it's just so wild. You know, this is not L.A. And it sure as heck ain't downtown Austin. So we're talking about Spicewood, folks. And so he's out, and he's climbing on a tree that's fallen over, and there's a root bed. And because he's cold, he's on top of it. And then this sweet boy found his own challenge that he had to overcome.
Tonight, a Central Texas family is warning others about the dangers of rattlesnakes. This after their 6-year-old son was bitten near their home in Spicewood while playing with friends. The little boy was hospitalized for 2 weeks and went through 30 vials of antivenom as doctors tried to control the havoc that the venom was causing in his body.
I went over there and I climbed 6 feet and a snake was there.
And that snake was a diamondback rattlesnake. It also thought the old dead tree was a good place to climb, and apparently it wasn't the only snake in the area.
It scared me and made me fall down, and then the baby snake came all the way over there and bit me.
I believe my son may very well be dead today if it weren't for Dell.
After 2 weeks of excruciating pain, surgeries, and round-the-clock care, Cole has learned a lot more about rattlesnakes than he cared to know.
They are dangerous. They can kill you. Yes, some people already know that. They live in tall grasses. And I got bit by one.
It's one thing for me to have to go through pain. It's quite another for me to have to watch my son fight for his own life. Sorry. As he ran in screaming, he and 2 other 7-year-olds, he was 6 at the time, 38 pounds, full of energy, screaming in pain, this high-pitched scream, and just writhing on the floor in pain. It began to swell at the puncture wound. There was only a single puncture wound on his right shin. And he assured me he hadn't been bitten by any snake. They saw a snake, and so he ran. And so there was a single puncture wound on his shin. I thought, all right, well, he must have hit his shin as he ran. And we had a neighbor come over, a native Texan. Hey, do you think he got bitten? No, I don't think it's not. So he screamed. I'm like, you sure you didn't get bitten by a snake? Yeah, Dad, screaming at me in the midst of this pain. And so I think, okay. It starts swelling at the puncture wound. We lay him down, have him watching something. Starts to swell at his ankle. I think, okay. Well, he said he ran away and he fell. So he probably twisted his ankle. It's not unusual that that would swell. Time passes. He's still in pain. It starts to swell above the puncture wound. I scoop him up and I run. I take him to the hospital. And I walk in screaming, get antivenom! And they have to do extra tests and do their own proofs and x-ray him to make sure he didn't break his leg. I assure them that's not the case. Just get antivenom! No response. So what they have to do is they take time to create antivenom, and they deliver it in 4 vials. I don't know if you were listening in the beginning. It said it took 30 vials of antivenom before it finally stopped the spread of the venom through my son's body. They give him 4, and then they wait for 4 hours to see if it spreads. And they mark it with a pen, and they check to see if it swells anymore. And it spread. And they wait 4 more hours after they give 2 more vials of antivenom. And they wait 4 more hours. And if it's still swelling and spreading and killing your son, they'll give him 2 more vials of antivenom. So we're talking about days of 0 sleep for me, my wife, or my son as he screams in pain as this venom kills him. And it just spreads. And so it spreads and it spreads. And like I said, he's 6 years old and 38 pounds. His leg is literally this big around. And it spreads to that, and swells to that, and it swells to that, and it swells to that. And it's going up and higher, and it gets to his thigh, and it swells to that. And the reason I go through this detail is because through all of this, they're assuring me we have to cut his leg open. We have to slice it all the way down to the bone, all the way down to the bone, and fillet my son's leg. And I know that even if he lives, that kind of leg, he's never going to be the same. He's never going to be able to walk and climb and be whole on that kind of leg. And so I had to walk in faith and confidence, knowing that he would live and not die, believing and praying and being confident in what was right and what I knew to be the right yes, and therefore the right no. And so over and over again, I stayed by his side, keeping the doctor from maiming my son in good intentions. But the right yes prompted me having to make really strong no's. The priority of keeping my son alive and viably healthy afterwards had to take precedence over this other gentleman's thought of what was best. That's what it looks like as it's killing my son. And you got to have a really strong knowledge of what your yes is to say, no, you're not going to cut him in half. Your why is what drives everything. Who are you choosing to be? How will that affect your actions? And what is your best yes? So that your no's can be strong and confident, and you can prioritize things as they need to be the leader you've been called to be. That's your why. Now that's my boy on the other side of it. On the other side of it, with a foot, by the way, that's still paralyzed from that venom. But we've moved a muscle from his left thigh to his right shin to recreate that movement and to restore him fully. Now, he still climbs, he's still active, but I want to let you know, look, even a 6-year-old, when his why is strong enough, knows that it's worth making that yes on, I'm going to take this risk and move this muscle down to there just to see. I'm going to go back under surgery because it's worth it. My why is strong enough. That is so inspiring to me. That's a true phoenix. That's somebody who knows how to rise from the ashes. That's Cole Phoenix after the snake got him, climbing a rock wall. That's you when your why is strong enough. They're going to come at you with a bunch of impossibles. They're going to say, you cannot make it. Impossible that I will make it out of the stroke patient home I was assigned to. Walk again? Impossible. Engage again in a realistic way that advances others? Impossible. Marry that beautiful girl? Impossible. Have a life worth living after those things? Impossible. Sing again, they told me. Impossible. Huh. Nothing when your why is strong enough. Nothing is impossible when your why is strong enough. Do you mind cueing that last one? To dream the impossible dream, to fight the unbeatable foe, to bear with unbearable sorrow, to run where the brave dare not go, to right the unrightable wrong, to love pure and chaste from afar, to bear with unbearable sorrow, to reach the unreachable star. This is my quest, to follow that star, no matter how hopeless, no matter how far, to fight for the right without question or pause, to be willing to march into hell for heavenly cause. And I know if I'll only be true to this glorious quest, that my heart will lie peaceful and calm when I'm laid to my rest. And the world will be better for this. That one man, scorned and covered with scars, still strove with his last ounce of courage to reach the unreachable star. So who will you choose to be? How will that change your engagement? How will that strengthen your yeses? And just as important, what you say no to. And I know if I'll only be true to this glorious quest, that my heart will lie peaceful and calm when I'm laid to my rest. And the world will be better for this. That one man, scorned and covered with scars, still strove with his last ounce of courage to reach the unreachable star. Thank you. Thank you. So I know you're not clapping for me. I know you're clapping for my wife. I know you're clapping for Cole Phoenix. I know at the end of the day, what I hope you recognize is you're clapping for you because this isn't my story. It's yours. So who wants to find out how to very proactively take on a skill set that's going to get us across that finish line? Does that sound like a plan? I would love to introduce you to my partner, probably the better half of this presentation, Ms. Shelley Preby, and she's going to help us actuate this. All right, guys?
Okay. Thank you, Jason.
Yes, ma'am.
It's a tough act to follow, right? I've got a little tear in my eye and a lot of admiration.
For my wife.
For your wife. Okay. What I get to do at this point, and don't worry, I am not going to sing, okay? What I get to do is actuate. And that's what you guys are going to do. You are going to actuate. We're going to, real briefly, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you a roadmap.